Hi, and welcome to the latest edition of the Best of Pedalshift. On this edition, we travel all the way back to 2014. That's how far back we go with this podcast, basically, to episode number 10, episode 010 of the pod. And I would have to say that this is arguably my favorite episode of the entire run of the show, especially the early episodes, because this was my first experiment with a little bit of audio storytelling from a tour. The folks that have been with the show from the very beginning know that in 2014, I did the entire Pacific coast over the course of a little over a month. I think it was like 6 weeks or so, give or take, starting in Victoria, BC, going up to Sydney, BC, and then eventually turning back around and going down all the way to the Mexican border with California. And it was quite literally a trip of a lifetime. And I recorded a ton of audio on that trip. And as the fall progressed, I got to the point where it was enough in the rearview mirror that I was able to consolidate that audio into a package that I thought told the story in a way that one could sit down and listen to it within an hour. And I did things a little bit different back then. I didn't record as much audio as I do now on any given day. It was usually just one time a day. But it really was helpful in, conveying the dramatic differences that could happen from day to day. So that's the backstory to all of this. Let me read what I wrote back then. In the summer of 2014, I took 6 weeks to ride the Pacific coast from Victoria, BC to the U.S.-Mexico border. I recorded a 2 to 5 minute audio entry every day for the Tour Journals podcast to share the more detailed aspects of the ride, but always intended to edit and condense it into a more manageable length to share on the main podcast. I recorded almost every entry while rolling, usually in the morning as I left camp. Listeners to the Pedalshift Project will definitely recognize some of the anecdotes, especially the mention of the United Nations delegation in Central and Southern California. As I edited the story, I found myself transported back to each spot on the tour. I remember fine-grained details of pull-offs, tide levels, and how I felt every time I called back home. The sound of the waves, the seagulls, the ravens, the traffic of US Highway 101 and California Highway 1 helped transport you to those spots as a listener. Look, this isn't a substitute to bicycling the entire Pacific coast by any stretch of the imagination, but at least it gives you a little bit of an inkling, and it only takes about an hour.
Day 1, July 17th, 2014, currently outside of Sydney, British Columbia. I spent yesterday in Victoria, British Columbia, and the highlight of the day was highlights, we'll say two. As an incredibly motion sick person, I did not get sick on the 3-hour journey from Seattle to Victoria. I can't tell you how big of a victory that is. It's a monumental victory. And B, I found poutine, which is a traditional Canadian dish of fries, beef gravy, and cheese curds. I'll tell you what, the Quebecois, they're the ones that created it, but I'm telling you, these Victoria people really nailed it. It was delicious. I'll be crossing back into the States today. I had a really easy 20-mile ride from Victoria to just outside of Sydney, which is a beautiful little town I'll be spending most of the day in today. And the reason why I won't be biking a lot today is the ferry schedule is very limited. And I originally thought that I was going to miss going to San Juan Island and Friday Harbor, which would have been a huge bummer because out of characteristic for me, I'm going to have a hotel day there, and I booked it, and I almost thought that I wouldn't be able to make it, and that I was going to have to pay the stupid tax for it, but it turns out it works out just fine. I will be able to make it. It just means that I'm going to be spending most of the day here in Sydney rather than most of the day over in Friday Harbor and San Juan Island. The next morning, I'll be able to go to Anecdotes, Washington, and then bike probably about 40 miles or so, and then take 2 ferries that day, but I'm much less reluctant to get on these ferries now that I know that Dramamine is a very helpful thing for my body. It never worked before, but now it seems to be working. So I'm very, very happy about that. Plus, these ferry rides are much shorter. Very exciting. I hope you can hear some of the birds chirping. It's in McDonald Provincial Park. Really beautiful, very picturesque. They appear to be redwoods. I went to bed at 5:30 p.m., conked out for about 13 hours. So clearly my body was telling me something about need for sleep. It's great. I'm ready and raring to go for the rest of the tours. Day 2 from Friday Harbor, Washington. The sound that you hear in the background is the sound of the ferry that's going to be whisking me to Anecdotes, Washington, which is the beginning of the mainland although it is technically on an island as well. I've got one more ferry after that, but these islands that I'll be going to next are connected to the mainland by actual roads, so one could conceivably leave my bike from them. But I'm going to be going south probably about 41 miles, taking one more ferry till I lay my head down tonight in Old Fort Townsend State Park in Washington State. Day 3 from nearby Port Townsend, Washington, and I am on the Olympic Peninsula, and it is flat out gorgeous. So I got you can hear the car traffic in the background. I'm on Washington State Route Highway 20, a little bit of a headwind, which I started experiencing yesterday. I don't remember who first termed this, but invisible hills. I hear that a lot in the touring community, so that's sort of what they are. This is a very small invisible hill. Day 4, I am just departing Potlatch State Park in Washington State. It's fun. It wasn't my favorite state park I've ever been in. I'm on US 101, an early morning vehicle. It is a rainy, drizzly morning, which, if you've ever done the Pacific Coast Tour during the summer, it's kind of unusual, actually. The weather is generally very mild, and rain is unusual. Hood Canal is to my left right now, and it's super misty and beautiful. And good day. Yesterday, it was crazy windy. Headwinds were just simply brutal and very difficult. It was 64 miles. Boy, it felt like a lot more effort that went into it. Today is ostensibly 75-mile day, but if the headwinds are as bad as they were yesterday, I may actually split it into 2 days, just because I'm trying not to take too many 0-mile days, and I know if I really push myself too hard that, I may have to take one at some point. But, we're just going to kind of take this as it comes. Right now, it feels really good. It's nice and cool. The sun is not out. It's overcast, which actually helps me quite a bit. Direct sun and heat is sort of my enemy. Shoulders in this part of the ride, very minimal. I mean, it's 3 feet tops. And luckily, most of the drivers, if you can hear them, are being somewhat respectful, including one earlier that went all the way into the oncoming lane. Do not recommend. July 21st, leaving the town of Aberdeen, Washington, the birthplace of Kurt Cobain, if you're not familiar. Home of logging trucks, like that one. And definitely a town that's seen better days. Crossing the Chehalis River right now on Highway 101. Yesterday was a tough day. It was in the book, and the book is Bicycling the Pacific Coast or something along those lines. It's the purple book if you're familiar with it. The book yesterday has you going 75 miles for not insignificant terrain, but really tough riding. Really tough headwinds, which apparently are the norm in this part of the ride, which I mentioned in yesterday's journal, that's unusual for the other parts of the coast where the predominant winds are north to south, so you have a tailwind actually, which is why most people ride north to south. But on this particular ride, it was really tough. 30 mile sustained headwinds for at least 20 miles, and I called it after about 60 miles, and I ended up staying in the town of Aberdeen, and that worked out fine. Although Washington State, I do adore it, I have to say this portion of the state is not the most picturesque. I think it'll get better. I'm looking forward to it. So here we are, almost to Bay Center, Washington, and a little word to the wise: when you use Google Maps for bike directions, sometimes you'll end up on gravel roads, and you'll be hearing as I begin my descent here. Luckily, I have a little bit of mountain bike background, but it's different on a touring bike, and it's different fully loaded. Kind of washboarded, big old hunks of rock. This is not a super highly maintained road, but I do have to say it's been a little bit fun, although I think it's been a lot more work because I've been going up and down a lot. I wonder if I had stuck with 101. Might have been flat and easy just going around the bend, maybe an extra mile or so, but this is certainly a lot more work. I don't know if you can hear this too well, but it's kind of challenging. Hopefully you won't hear me falling, because that would be unmistakable. That was a gnarly descent there. Sometimes you do a little bit of extra adventure, not on purpose. Thank you, Google Maps. And it's fun. And that's what this tour is all about. It is day 6. I am leaving Lompoc Bay, which is near Bay Center, Washington. Nice KOA, said nobody ever here. Enjoyed it quite a bit. Got a little laundry done. Got some work done on their Wi-Fi that worked halfway decently. Beautiful view right now. Some downed trees and really Lompoc Bay looking just gorgeous right now. And yesterday I had said that I was hoping the scenery would improve, and it did quite a bit. So, crossing the Columbia River, which is a river near and dear to me. Some of you may know I co-founded Columbia River Keeper, and I've never crossed the bridge at that point by bike, which is right at the mouth of it, where just a cajillion gallons of water every day just spills into the Pacific Ocean, and it's pretty spectacular and kind of an amazing ecological phenomenon, and I'm really excited to see that. Get across, maybe have some food in Astoria, and maybe do a little shopping there. Food shopping, then end up at Fort Stevens State Park for my first night in Oregon. So this is kind of a big deal, crossing my first state.
Roll on, Columbia, roll on.
Day 7, outside of Astoria, Oregon, at Fort Stevens State Park. And you can probably hear in the background, it is raining, and it's going to rain all day. And it looks like it might rain all day tomorrow as well. So I'm facing a bit of a conundrum. Do I want to stick to my schedule? Do I want to try to wait this out? Is it really going to last all day, both days? And I think I've decided it's not critical that I stick to the exact schedule that I have. I'm not trying to get any place by any specifically particular date. I've got some days off baked in other places. I can just take a 0-mile day today if I'd like. That said, I only have about a 44-mile day scheduled, and that's really not that bad. I could do that in the rain. I could see if I could wait for it to taper off a little bit. So let's see what comes out of all of this. I'm dry and happy in the tent. I just made some coffee. I planned for rain, so I got plenty of food yesterday. It's all in the tent with me. This is fine. This is really fine. Looks like it's going to be raining pretty steadily for at least the next hour or more. We'll see how it goes. If it does look like there's a window, all I need is a few hours to pack up the tent and get down to my next stop. It'll be wet, but so be it. This is Oregon. If you don't bike in the rain, you don't bike in Oregon, I suppose. Kind of fun. Not expected. Hey, that's bike touring right there. Day 8. I am in Heylin Bay, Oregon, which is a little bit different than where I thought I'd be yesterday morning. Got a little bit restless, and the rain kind of chilled out for a little while, and I actually had big, beautiful, sunny weather for a good chunk of the ride, and then the last hour and a half, the rain, everything opened up, and it was a pretty gnarly, crazy couple of downhills to get here. I was soaked to the bone, and I loved every second of it. I have to say that, those are the types of things that can make your world a little miserable, or you can just embrace it, and I chose to embrace it. Got a hot shower here at the campground. It's really beautiful. I think you can probably, unfortunately, hear SUV traffic more than the background of the waves crashing, but that's a real highlight here. The sun is out. It rained all night. Everything is wet on the outside, but I'm drying out the tent fully and thoroughly and then getting on the road within the next couple of hours. Not sure where I'm going to end up tonight. We've got a few good options. One that Mysterious James, MJ, and I have always stayed at. It's a county park in Pacific City, Oregon. Bonus, right near a brewery, a very good one, right on the beach. So this is the end of new to me riding in Oregon, and now I've got a very long, beautiful, great, well-known ride between where I'll end up tonight, and San Francisco, which is really exciting. And I like revisiting these things. But I'm also looking forward to what's south of San Francisco as well, because that's all going to be new to me. Day 9. It's kind of crazy. It's been almost a week and a half that I've been on the road. I'm nearing halfway through Oregon. I'm really into the rhythm of the ride, and the last 2 days, it's been challenging. It looked like it was going to be a dry ride, and then all of a sudden, it was just sort of that misty Oregon rain that doesn't really let up, and I was absolutely soaked for the first, half of the ride. I had about a 50-mile ride to Pacific City yesterday. That's challenging. I mean, when you're soaked. But, if you're moving, you're warm. And it wasn't like it was that cold. I was probably in the low 60s. And it was a totally fine ride. And, of course, I decided to go the longer route, put in the 50, and get to Pacific City, which is a familiar place and probably one of my favorite places on the Oregon coast. As I was texting to my brother who lives in Portland, there are bigger cities on the coast. There are cities with more to do on the coast, but I don't think there's one that I like better than Pacific City. There's the Pelican Brewing Company, which is just fantastic, and a stupid expensive county park. It's, I think, $20 to stay the night, which, it's just sort of ridiculous for a municipal park. But it's right across the street from this beautiful beach and this amazing brewing company. So, yeah, I guess I'll pay nearly 4 times as much to camp based on location. Day 10. It is a smoky morning here at the Beverly Beach State Park. Had a good ride yesterday, got all the way to Beverly Beach, and unfortunately I forgot this is not the preferred state park to be at. I'd like to stop at the Rogue Brewery. Well, the Rogue Brewery is actually about 8 miles down, and it's near South Beach State Park. So unfortunately I didn't get a chance to do that last night. This is a really nice, this mid-coast area. One of my favorite areas. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'll be passing by the midway point between Washington and California, if the guide was correct. I think I passed 500 miles yesterday. Again, this is all higher level math that I don't feel like doing at the moment, but I will figure that all out. Because at some point I want to figure out when I'm passing by mileage markers of note. Met some interesting people. They're doing the coast as well for a solar energy charity. Met another couple just now who are also going south and may end up in camp with them as well. This is about the time when I start meeting people that I don't tend to bike with specifically. However, I'll see them at the end of the day at camps because a lot of people use the same resource, the book, as I've referred to it before. So you end up in a lot of the same places. The distances are about right for a day's worth of biking, and that makes sense. You might be able to hear I'm right here at 101, and making a left turn in front of just a glorious beach. Day 11, just south of Florence, Oregon, and I'm leaving Honeyman State Park. Shoulderless areas were a little tricky at times. I caught a rut in one spot and had an almost catastrophic fall. Hi, Mom. Climbing out of the park right now, and I think I've got about 60 miles or so through most of the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area. A lot of traffic often. It is a Sunday, so I'm hoping with the early start it'll be a little bit better, but at some point it's going to get super busy, so we'll see how that all goes. Familiar sounds of 101 now. Not so much for no traffic. This is day 12. Woke up to the sound of what sounded like rain, but it was actually the fog that had moved in here at Sunset Bay State Park and had condensed on the tree above my tent. So, pro tip, do not camp in foggy areas underneath trees. I probably should know that by now, but, pro tip. The part of the ride that I'm about to embark on in a few miles is called the Seven Devils. And it is what it sounds like. It's a series of 7 hills. Now, the first one is the biggest. You go up one of the steepest grades in the state of Oregon. It's a heck of a way to start your morning. After that, it's rolling on top of this almost like plateau area, very remote and beautiful. By the time you're down this glorious descent, you work for it, trust me. But you're only a few miles outside of Bandon, which is a reasonably decent-sized town, and you're halfway to the next campsite. Day 13, Humbug Mountain State Park in Southern Oregon. Emphasis on Southern because today I have decided that I'm going to get down past the state border and all the way to Crescent City, California. There was another, I think a mother and daughter from Canada, and they had a huge U-Haul that they put their entire tent built into the U-Haul as I was coming up, and I thought, well, that's just the most peculiar thing I've ever seen. And apparently the Greyhound bus that used to exist from Brookings, which is the southernmost town of note in Oregon, that Greyhound bus doesn't exist anymore. The only way to get back up to Astoria, if you're just doing the Oregon coast, is to rent a U-Haul. So they had just done the Oregon coast, but good information because the I believe it's now 15-year-old book specifically mentions that there's Greyhound service in Brookings, and it does not exist. I would love to see a resource with some updated stuff, because there are some things that are wrong in that book. A couple of mileage things. For the most part, it's excellent. I think that's why it stood the test of time. But things like, hey, you can pick up a Greyhound bus in Brookings, Oregon, and it doesn't exist anymore. If you were relying on that, you could be, in their situation, having to rent an enormous U-Haul to get all your stuff back.
Oh, California, your blue moon and your stars. Meet me at the border. You're really not that far.
Day 14. It's hard to believe it's been 2 weeks since I started all of this. I am currently just north of Crescent City, California. Today has one of the most spectacular climbs you will ever do. South of Crescent City, there's a triple hill. And it's one big spectacular climb, and then 3 summits at the top of it. And then after that, start getting into real redwood territory, and that's really exciting. Heading into town, gonna grab some breakfast before the climbs, maybe even restock on a couple of things, because rural area here, not a lot of towns. The towns that are there don't have a lot of services, but really beautiful stuff. I'm excited to be heading on out. Day 15, just biking out of Elk Prairie State Park, which is at the beginning of Redwood area here in Northern California. Got some nice wildlife. You may be surprised that there are elk here. I got to see some of them yesterday, way off in the distance, unfortunately, under some apple trees. Last night, I started looking at the second half of the ride. As I was looking through the book, it appears that I'm going to be very close to the mathematical midpoint of my trip, if not the spiritual midpoint, which I'm declaring to be my few days off in San Francisco. Now I'm starting to have to look at my end game, which feels a little weird because I feel like I've just started in some ways, but I do have to start looking at what I want the end of my trip to be. Well, hello, Miss Deer. Thank you for not running away or into my butt. Of course, I ran off the road when I saw the deer. Not like in a bad way, though. So anyways, one of the consequences of going so hard and not taking any 0 mile days, even though I was tempted in the rain, I think last week, is, fatigue does start to set in. And I think I felt it more yesterday than anything else. And although I've got some days off in San Francisco coming up, that doesn't help me over the course of the next week and change, because that's not until next weekend. So I think that what that means is that I'm going to be staying at Old Tried and True RV Park in Fortuna tonight, which it's nothing special, but it is around the corner from a very good brewing company, Eel River Brewing, which I really, really like. Very quiet roads right now, very foggy start, by the way. Not on 101 right now, but I will be rejoining it soon, and there'll be a lot more traffic-y, but really wide shoulders there. This is a great day for getting some miles in. The book says to only go to as far as Eureka. I'm going to go to Fortuna, because that last 20 miles is just screaming fast. It's a slight downhill grade and really wide shoulders, and then, I get a camping opportunity that, it's fine, whatever. It's more expensive, of course, because it's an RV park. But then I get there. It's day 16. About to embark on a pretty short day, about 30 miles, merely 30 miles, only 30 miles, to the Avenue of the Giants, Burlington Campground. Today would be a day that I could conceivably push further. If you've ever been to the Avenue of the Giants, you know why I'm taking the short day and just going to really relax and enjoy the time. Burlington Campground is just one of the real jewels of this entire trip. It's day 17, and those are the ravens of Burlington Campground in Humboldt Redwoods State Park. And it's early in the morning. I got up before the sun came up, got all packed up. It's about 6:35 a.m. Pacific time. A moderate day today, going through a very steamy, hot portion of the ride. Highs today are projected somewhere in the 90s, low 90s, give or take. That's why I always like to get out really, really early. Good group in camp last night. Some familiar faces and some new faces as well. And I think I'll probably be seeing a bunch of them at Standish Hickey, which is the next state park right before Leggett. If I'm feeling good, I may go up and over Leggett like I did last year. I think I'm leaning against that because I like tackling that probably in the cooler air, which would be tomorrow morning. Fun day today. Looking forward to it. And of course I get another 12 miles or so of the Avenue of the Giants, so I'm really looking forward to finishing that off as well. It's always a treat every year. From just outside of Fort Bragg, California, in McCarricher, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, State Park. Had a heck of a day today. This was the Leggett Hill and Middle Finger Hill day. Turns out it does actually have a name, Rockport Hill, but we're going to call it Middle Finger Hill because it is a giant middle finger to you. Got up very early this morning, enjoyed the cool temperatures because I've done that hill in rainy, bad weather. I've done that hill in hot, dry weather. And now I've done it in relatively mild, cool, early morning temperatures. And there's no question that is so much easier. Kind of a duh. But yeah, wildfires in the area created for the first time that I've experienced smoke right up in the elevations at Leggett Hill. Leggett tops out just shy of 2,000 feet. I'd say the upper couple hundred feet were getting affected by that. It's tricky to breathe at times. And that was, as the kids say, no bueno. Once I got below it, you could really feel the difference between smoky air and fresh air. Wildfire could get in the way of my ability to get down the rest of the coast. Who knows? I'm hopeful that I can do it, but that's the goal at least. That's always been the goal of the border-to-border tour. Leggett's not that bad. It just isn't. Middle Finger Hill is kind of a pain in the ass. It is very steep. It is a full 0.6 to 3/4 of a mile longer than the book says it is. I don't know if that's because the book was initially wrong or if the mileage markers have been redone, but it's definitely the case, and it's in a way that really messes with your mind because it looks like it's ending at the point where the book says so in the mileage markers, but as you go around a couple of hairpins, you realize, no, it just keeps going, and at that point, your energy levels are so sapped that it really can mess with your mind. Luckily, I knew it going into it this year. So there's that, Middle Finger Hill. Following that, you have about 20 or so miles if you're intending to get to McCarriture, which is generally the place where most people go. That's a tough ride. They're rolling hills, but they're very steep. It's gorgeous. There's so many reasons to stop and take a look. So I would say just do that anyways. And for me, I rolled in here at noon, which was great. And I've had the better part of the afternoon, and I'm all set up. I've gotten some things dried out, took a shower. That's been really nice. So I'm going to go into town, and there's a great brewery in town. A couple of more days till San Francisco. I'm looking at getting there late this week. Day 20. For those of you who think California is always sunny and warm, I invite you to come to Manchester, California in the summer. It is not. One of the cooler nights I've had on this entire trip, and I was plenty warm, had plenty of gear to handle all this. I knew this was going to come. Foggy all day. Sun never came out once. And it looks like more of the same this morning as I'm about to make a right onto Highway 1 if this truck will get out of my way. Thank you for your exhaust. Visibility is much better. I had my blinkers on all day yesterday. And today, I don't think I'll need them, at least for now. If the fog gets any worse, I will turn them on. But visibility is pretty much full line of sight. It's just off in the distance where you see the fog. Today gives me a few options. The book, we all know the book, says I go a little over, 65 miles, 66 miles. This first 20 miles is kind of easy to a town called Walala. Starts with a G. Nice town. Spent a Thanksgiving there once. And after that, there's a whole lot of nothing. A couple of other towns, I think Marina and a couple others. Really pretty area. Very agricultural area. Hello, Miss Cow. There's their cows. I've been used to seeing elk and deer, and now I'm seeing, I don't know what kind of cows these are, but just a really beautiful, picturesque place here, Manchester, California. It's day 21, 3 weeks in, Fort Ross, California. There's an outside chance that I go all the way to Samuel P. Taylor tonight, which would actually put me a day ahead of schedule. The sun is out, and the sun is out probably because it rained last night. So, had a wet tent this morning, but not too bad. Enjoyed a good long sleep, and I'm feeling pretty good right now. So, beautiful day. Maybe San Francisco Thursday, maybe Friday. Day 22 from Samuel P. Taylor State Park, just north, about 33 miles of my spiritual midpoint destination of San Francisco, California. A little bit past the actual midway point. Did the 70 miles yesterday, and I was really pooped. And now I'm on this gorgeous little trail here that's going to be spitting me out onto some of the arterials that will lead me to the Golden Gate Bridge, and then over that bay and into San Francisco, where I'll have 4 glorious nights of rest and relaxation. I had a bit of a hospitality issue last night with the park rangers here at Samuel P. Taylor. Everywhere else, they've been very accommodating and flexible, I think is how I would put it, about checking in. And here, I had just done 70 miles. The way that you approach the area, you come in through the back entrance. You don't go through a check-in station. So I set up, and I hadn't been here for more than maybe a half hour or 40 minutes. And they came in and were checking and didn't feel very welcome. Accusation felt very much like I was trying to get away with something, which of course was not the case. It was the first sort of anti-join moment of the tour, and I understand they were doing their jobs, but I compare that to the park rangers and the other California state parks where they're like, oh, just go ahead and you can even pay tomorrow. Or even Oregon, where, to their great credit, they recognize the great boon that cycle touring is to their economy, and I think they train their staff accordingly. And here it just wasn't like that. And I understand that this park gets a little bit more pressure from the city of San Francisco, and that they sometimes have some issues at the hiker-biker campsite, but at the same time, it didn't feel very welcoming, which was unfortunate because I was sort of ready for a little more of a celebratory mood than anything else, particularly after a long day. Anyways, off to San Francisco. This is the first day back on the bike after several days off. And I am sitting in Golden Gate Park and taking a bit of a break. I haven't gone very far, but I've actually got a phone call meeting in a little bit. So, saw some friends on Friday night, but otherwise really, this was probably my most relaxed time ever in San Francisco. I really needed some extended rest, so I'm ready to go though. Although it's funny, leaving San Francisco is always difficult for me because it's a town that's got a lot of pull on me. Heading to Half Moon Bay, and that's only about 33 miles. Most of my days are actually sub 50 miles, and some are substantially below that by design, because I really wanted to kind of see and experience this portion of the coast. I've never ridden it before. After nearly a month of riding, even with this break, just kind of take it easy and enjoy it a little bit more. Shipping a box back, I'm so heavy. I just need to get rid of some weight. So I've got several things, water bladders that I haven't used, a few other things as well. I think I'll feel a lot lighter. I think this box is going to be probably 5 pounds, maybe even closer to 10. Lighten the bulk as well. Yeah, I don't know what the next few days are going to be like. I mean, I think that between here and the central part of the coast, it's pretty much a no-brainer. I'm into it. I'm excited about it. As I get further south, I'm looking at some things and I'm hoping to enjoy it. But I've also sort of promised myself that if this stops being fun, then I'm going to change things up. I still intend to try to get to the border. Want to get to the border. That's the whole point of this. I hope to do it all by bike. But if this becomes a chore at any point, then I'm going to change things up. Day 27 from gorgeous Half Moon Bay, California. So many of these tour journals have had the soundscape of traffic that I thought I would give you an early morning soundscape of the beach as an alternative. Not half bad. For those of you who question, hey, why California? Why do people want to come to California? I'm going to tell you right now, this is probably one of the reasons why. Yesterday's ride was fantastic. The Devil's Slide area was so maligned, really wasn't that bad for me. Shoulders, as advertised, very, very short. But it's been fun, seeing the surfers out, seeing some really spectacular coastline. This really feels like a transition right here, and I know that there's going to be even more of a transition as I get further south, probably past Santa Barbara into more of a Southern California feel. But the coastline starts to change here, and the beaches turn into what you sort of classically feel like are sort of the sandy California beaches. That we're away from a lot of the rocky coastline at this point. As beautiful as that is, it turns into more sort of like a beach like you think of it. Ride, it really hit the spot. It was exactly what I needed. I clicked right back into things. The views were spectacular. I'm really back into it after just a day back on the road, which is really good, because if you heard yesterday's tour journal, I was sort of a little, I almost want to say ambivalent about the whole thing. It's always hard for me to leave San Francisco. But I think I've got some really cool adventures coming in the next few days. We'll see where it all leads. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to come. Excited to see Santa Cruz today. One of my favorite kind of dark horse cities. It's a cool city, town, whatever you want to call it. May look to take a longer break in Santa Cruz. Maybe a bookstore, Santa Cruz, one of my favorites. It's a good record store there. At least there was last time I was there, which feels like a million years ago. So don't know if I can pick up any vinyl and risk it for the rest of the voyage, but maybe I can pick some up and ship it home. We'll see. Day 28 from Santa Cruz, California. Yesterday was very sunny and very challenging for me. Sun is sort of my enemy when it comes to biking. So, didn't stop in Santa Cruz, although I was sorely tempted, but found that I probably drank too much Gatorade and not enough water, and my appetite was completely gone. I didn't even eat dinner yesterday. So as a result, I went to bed very early, got a great night's sleep, and I feel 100% right now. Today's only about a 40-mile day, and the beauty of it is that it's a relatively flat ride, and it's through a lot of agricultural areas, and I get to go to Monterey, which is another one of my favorite places. I have to say the route south of San Francisco, you're going through Half Moon Bay, Santa Cruz, Monterey, Big Sur. It's sort of greatest hits territory. Day 29 from foggy Monterey, California. Had a very sunny ride in. It took a little bit out of me. Early starts are always really good because the fog's still in, at least in this part of the coast. And then if the sun comes out like it has been the last couple of days, it saps my strength. I mean, there are some people who've been riding who prefer the sun and wait until the fog burns off, but that's just not me. I got a short day because I am going to Big Sur, and Big Sur is just one of the most beautiful spots on the California coast, and I'm really excited about it. If I can get there and still have some energy left, because there's a little bit of climbing, I'm hoping to maybe do a hike, and apparently there's a hot spring that's within a reasonable hiking distance. I don't know what the terrain's like because I don't have real good hiking shoes, but I may check that out. I don't know. I'm just really excited to be back in Big Sur. I've never camped there. I have gone through it once before last fall while on the Tranquility Tour book tour. So it'll be a change of perspective on a bike. Looking forward to it. Day 30 from Big Sur, California. I am cycling through what may very well be the last of my Redwoods on this entire ride, which is a little bittersweet because they have been companions that pop up occasionally along this whole route for the last 30 days. I'm passing by the Big Sur Lodge here at Pfeiffer State Park. The hiker-biker site here rivals Burlington, which heretofore has been my favorite on the Avenue of the Giants. I think it's a little more commercial here, which might ding it a bit. It doesn't feel quite as pure, but still a fantastic stop. It's not the one that the book recommends. It recommends that you kill yourself and do a 68-mile day or something crazy to go to the next site that I'm going to, and I decided to split it up. Didn't end up doing any hikes yesterday. It was a beautiful ride, though. Moderately challenging, but because it was so short, it really wasn't that bad. One thing that kind of didn't sit well with me is there's a antique car festival or something going on in Carmel, and as I was rolling up through these pretty challenging hills, a lot of photographers were getting in the way, and were in the shoulder waiting for these cars. And when they did, they made a huge racket, and I'm sucking in way more. I mean, they are definitely not as emissions friendly as modern cars. Super cool cars. I'm just not a car guy. But yeah, I felt quite a juxtaposition yesterday. About to turn left here on 101. Might have heard that. Very challenging day today in terms of hills, a couple of big climbs. Water, I understand from a northbound guy, is at a premium. The droughts really hit the central part of the state very hard, and as a result, no showers can be expected for the next several days, which is going to be interesting. I think I'm going to have to figure out something to clean the sweat off my body. Sorry for the graphic depiction there. Day 31, somewhere in the middle of the Central California coast. No signals at all last night. The longest time I've had without one. Those are the first vehicles on Highway 1 I've seen this morning. It is straight up gorgeous. I am south of Big Sur, but before Hearst Castle. You can tell I'm going uphill and seeing Simeon. Today is one of the bigger climbing days. The last several days, 2 massive 1,000-footers. So that'll be challenging. I'm going up a little one first. So a lot of climbing today. Hope to be in Morro Bay tonight. And some good news. A nice woman from the East Bay who lost her dog at the campground I was just at. A nice surfer guy brought the dog back to her this morning. She was very happy. So there was much early morning celebration because it was stupid early as I was packing up and leaving. So yay for good news. Day 32, Morro Bay, California. Yesterday was very, very sun-soaked. Fog lasted just long enough to get me through the 2 big climbs, which were big, but not as challenging as I expected them to be. Got up and down those pretty quickly, and into some really fast riding. Ended up doing, I think it was 60 altogether yesterday, and the last, say 35 of it was very fast. I think that there were stretches. Now, I didn't measure it, but I'm sure I was well above 20 and probably up to 25 miles per hour on some of the flats. The downhills, I wouldn't be surprised if I was getting into the 30s, well into the 30s and perhaps faster. Today, interesting conundrum. Very short day, only 26 miles to Pismo Beach and Oceana Campground, which is supposed to be great, and Pismo's awesome, and, I could spend a day eating fish tacos and drinking beer, which sounds great. Or, it's early. I'm going to be there really early, and sitting around and, just sort of lollygagging has not been my thing. I'm thinking about doing about 70 and getting the inland part done and going to Lompoc. Options abound. It would put me ahead of schedule a full day, which, I could use in LA, San Diego, Santa Barbara, wherever. So we'll see how that all goes. Day 33, Lompoc, California. Did the 70 yesterday, as it turned out, and not the short day. It was just too nice of a day, and I was done too early to stop in Pismo. I was kind of tempted because it looked like a cool town, but just needed to keep going. It was very sunny and not warm, probably only in the 70s at the hottest point, and I'm adjusting to the sun, which is good because I was a little concerned about all of that. I ran into a little low water issue when I was going up and over Harris Grade Road in Santa Barbara County. It's very twisty, very steep, but there's not a lot of water in between there. I had enough to get me to the top, and then it was all downhill for the last 4.5 miles, so it wasn't an issue, but it's definitely something I need to keep an eye on. I just don't think I'm going to run into too many more problems like that. I think that there are very few climbs remaining between here and the border. I think there's just a handful. I'm taking advantage of a hotel day here in Lompoc by doing some laundry. I'm getting some work done. I've got till noon to check out, and I may just do that because I could use a little bit of rest after doing about 130 some odd miles in the last 2 days. And I only have about 33 miles to go. Next up is Refugio State Beach, and I hear it's a great beach. It's spitting distance from Santa Barbara. That's the real transition into what is Southern California, and I'm really excited. I booked an Airbnb for Thursday night in Redondo Beach, and this is happening. So that's kind of exciting. Day 34 from Refugio State Beach. What a beautiful night. Nice group and camp as well. I was reunited with my United Nations crew from Belgium and New York via Denmark, so that was cool. And yeah, just a really beautiful, picturesque Central California coastal kind of setup. A very short day today. You can probably hear the wind. I'm coming downhill here on 101. Very late traffic for 101, which is kind of a treat. Just seeing the waves crashing along the shore, going through Santa Barbara. May stop if something kind of piques my curiosity, but I was there last fall, so
I don't necessarily need to see any sights or anything like that. Carpinteria State Beach, I hope I am pronouncing that correctly, is about 30 miles, 2 miles down from this current spot. And it's going to be a great night, I think. A couple of grocery stores very close by, so I ate like a king last night, just ate all of my meals that I had remaining just to clear them out so that I can restock in Carpinteria. Looking forward to the rest of the ride. It's so far, I've gotten used to the sun, changed sort of what I wear a little bit, wearing mostly light colored clothes like they recommend. Day 35 from Carpinteria, California. Beautiful blue sky, beautiful short ride yesterday, a little longer ride today, going all the way through Ventura County, and at the end of the day, crossing into Los Angeles County. Cannot believe that. Riding with a couple of guys, probably we'll split up because I'm a little bit slower than them, but we'll all end up in the same spot. It'll be our last night together because one of the guys is stopping in LA. The other guy is going to be kind of doing his own thing after that, and of course I'm heading to Mexico. Got a few different options. I might actually mix in a little train just because it looks cool, the surf liner, and it goes right along the coast. So I may do a little bit of an alteration that includes some train and some more city riding. So we'll see how that all goes. But beautiful riding conditions today, a little bit of a tailwind, should be great. Day 36, just outside of Malibu. A little bittersweet in some ways. I had to say goodbye to a couple of guys I've been riding with, and that's always a little weird. And I think anybody who's traveled with people, especially just sort of the random people that you meet, you get that. But it's always the unexpected joy of doing a trip like this, to meet like-minded people that you can kind of vibe with and hang out with, and then travel hundreds of miles with them. And so it was really great. So Christian and Hugo, I thank you again. And the best part is last night we recorded a pretty wide-ranging interview, and it's going to end up on episode 006 of the Pedalshift Project. I'm excited. I'm back to being solo again, and I'm heading to Redondo Beach today, and I've got a rental at a place that is just outrageously cool. It's right on the beach, and things are changing for the rest of the trip here. I'm only going to be camping one more day, and that's going to be down Sunday, the last day before I go to the border, so that's going to be a big day. Rental tonight in Redondo, and then I'm going to go to Anaheim and be near Disneyland, and, why not? pure Southern California, right? Day 37, Los Angeles, California. Specifically, I'm in Redondo Beach right now, and today is urban riding adventure, as I mentioned yesterday, which was a glorious day. Let me start with that. 45 miles from Malibu to Redondo, Hermosa. It was right where I was staying was right on the border of Hermosa and Redondo Beach, and it turned out that the place that I rented was a guy who not only grew up in the same town as me, but also was in the same class as my brother, and he had a cousin who was in my class, who I played soccer with when I was a kid. So, it was such a small world to be, 3,000 miles away from where you grew up, and you end up having a connection quite like that. So that was very cool. Yeah, the ride was great, really flat. You go through iconic places, and if you saw the Twitter feed yesterday, I couldn't help but link to songs that reminded me, or literally had the cities' names in the title, Left My Wallet in El Segundo, Santa Monica, Malibu, things like that. So that was a lot of fun. And warm, much warmer, and I got to get used to that. I've been hydrating more, and I'm ready for today, because today, as you can hear, it is a great urban riding day. And I will use the word literally, because I will literally be riding across Los Angeles. I'm going to be starting here in Redondo, going through Torrance and a few other places as well to get to Anaheim. And I'm going to be next to Disneyland. If I get there, I should be there in about 3 hours. And I'll see how I feel. Maybe I'll go to Disneyland. Maybe I'll catch a movie. But today's more about
seeing LA by bike, which is something I've sort of always wanted to do. But I have to make a left on Torrance, so we're going to end it right now. Day 38 from Anaheim, California. Happiest place on earth, etc., etc. I spent yesterday with just a thrilling is the way to put it, ride across the entire Los Angeles area. Went through towns like Torrance and Carson and Long Beach, the northern part of Long Beach. And what an enjoyable ride. I expected it to be a real challenge, but it was just a really interesting mix of urban riding, but with these big, LA-style wide boulevards, a couple of off-traffic sections as well, especially in the Long Beach area. Boy, it was a really nice ride. I enjoyed the heck out of it. And it demystified LA riding for me quite a bit. I think there's been a few things that I would say I was warned about in my, obviously, experience of one ride, just didn't find it to be the case. I found the parks not to be sketchy for the most part in Southern California. And I've also found that the riding in LA was, I'll say it, downright pleasant. I kind of enjoyed it. Now, I'm used to some more urban riding in DC, but, I'm riding right on a major road right now, and I'm not finding any issues with it. In fact, I'm going right by Disneyland Drive. All right, so I should probably talk about Disneyland, huh? I used to work for Disney way back in the day, and I just thought it would be kind of a fun little escape. I didn't go to the parks. I do Disney a little bit differently. If you followed my wacky feed yesterday, you noticed I had a few beers, had some coffee, went around, saw a movie. I enjoyed it all. It was a pretty good day. And just a fun, different way to do it. Also, I'm trying to transition a little bit back into reality as this trip goes on, rather than doing it all at once at the end. And I think that might be a little bit more helpful. So being in a very corporate environment and a very consumery environment, I think was a good shock to the system. And Guardians of the Galaxy, good movie. I enjoyed that. So today, I'm going to be riding. I'm, in fact, riding right now. I just pulled off the road a little bit to finish the recording here. Going to the Anaheim Amtrak station. I'll be taking the Surfliner down to Oceanside, California, and then doing, I think, maybe about an hour and a half so ride down to San Elijo. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, State Beach, which is the final stop before the border. I'm excited to see the coastline, and I'm excited to get further down south, and I'm excited to see San Diego and the border, which is amazing. It's the beginning of my last day, the official tour. Of course, I'll be around for a couple of extra days to sort of wrap things up in San Diego, but today I start just outside of Encinitas, and I wanted to do a two-parter, obviously, because I traditionally do the start of the day on the journal. But of course, the end of the day is pretty momentous, so I'll probably do a quick one right after I hit the border. Beautiful park here. This is San Elijo State Beach. I'm positive I'm mispronouncing it. My apologies for the fans. I'm up early. It's a really beautiful spot, but it's a very, very public spot. It's at the very end of the park, and it's all on a very public thoroughfare, both for the coastal highway, Highway 1, and the beach itself. So it's pretty busy, and a lot of surfers out. You can probably hear the surf. I think the tide's going. It might be coming back in again. Last night, as I was going to bed, it was hitting high tide, and it was really rushing through this inlet where the campsite is. I mean, I'm within 20 feet of the water again. It's kind of amazing, these Southern California parks, the ability to camp so close to the surf. It's pretty fun, and it's been a lot of fun to watch the surfers. There's been some weather disruptions off the coast, so the surf's very high, so there's some really awesome waves, and it's been fun to watch. I don't know what else to say. It's a big day.
America is falling for you. Your hat hash browns, your broken tunes. You're full of walls and phonies tonight. I always knew you would be alright.
At the Mexican border. And that will be the end of the border-to-border tour. I've decided definitely not to cross over. It looks like there's quite a lineup on the other side. I'm not even sure if that's the actual lineup coming back. I'm not even sure if you can cross here. Who the heck knows? It's sort of an interesting place to be, given all of the politics around immigration and whatnot, and, you know, the big fence, and it's just a very interesting thing. Border Patrol is very heavily populated around here, and it feels a little strange. What's interesting is there's almost no activity on the American side on the beach, yet on the Mexican side it is just a big party. I don't know what kind of a statement that makes, but it's something, right? Beautiful day riding. Rode completely unencumbered from Chula Vista to here because I was able to get into my hotel, and that was a really helpful thing. It was nice to ride unloaded because, of course, there were headwinds. Of course there were headwinds. But that's fine. It's sort of interesting to be here. I want to thank anybody who was helpful in any way, shape, or form for this trip, the support I got. I feel like I was carrying a few people with me in spirit, and that I was glad to be able to do that. And this has been a really great adventure, and I'm really looking forward to the next one.
I've loved and loved some time ago. So go to sleep, you've got sleep to go. When I was low without a station, I gave her away to the United Nations. You're so lonesome, you don't even care. You're so lonesome and you don't even care. You're so lonesome, you don't even care. You're so lonesome and you don't even care.
So there at the border, I mentioned two people I was taking along with me, and I thought I would share who those people were. First was my grandmother, who I lost at the beginning of the year, and I have a funny feeling I'm going to be taking her with me around Lake Ontario this spring as well. The second person was a buddy of mine who took a really big spill on his own adventure while I was in the middle of this tour, and he hasn't been able to get on a bike to tour since, and so I feel like I took him along on that second leg of the ride. Some of the music in the story was performed by my great friend Jason Kent of Montreal, Canada. Leave it to a Canadian to write iconic songs called California and America, right? Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift Project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.